Hi, everybody. This is my family. This is Chase, my husband Rob, me, and my daughters Rachel and her wife Hannah, and Reagan is behind the camera. In this paper, I will not so much discuss a specific ritual that took place in my family. Instead, I will discuss the traditions that my family upheld when I was a child. Although I would have loved to have been able to interview the members of my family who most influenced our family traditions, that's impossible because both my grandmothers passed away many years ago. Therefore, I relied on information that I gathered from speaking with my mother and on my own personal memories of my childhood in writing this speech, which will focus on how the belief systems associated with the masculine culture and the collectivism culture influenced traditions within my family. Speaking with my mother regarding this speech, the first thing that stands out in both our memories is the subject of the male-female roles in both my mother and father's families. Although neither of their families would claim a strong cultural background, rich with traditions, both families are of German descent. Therefore, the traditions that most influenced their families were based on a masculine, male-centered culture, and to a lesser extent, that of the collectivistic view of the importance of group over individual, or in this case, family over individual. Although the American culture is considered individualistic, both my grandmothers embodied the belief of family first, which is a value closely associated with the collectivist culture. They both raised their families in a way that demonstrated their belief in a family-first, male-centered culture. The traditions that my grandmother influenced in my family were based on the traditional masculine feminine roles that represented the norms of her German American culture in the early 1900s. My mother's told me many stories of family gatherings in which all of the women were gathered in the kitchen, making meals and preparing a meal for the male relatives. They stayed either in the living room or outside working until time when the meal was ready, and at the behest of the females, they would come in, eat, and immediately leave, leaving my female relatives, my great-grandmother, my mother, and all of her aunts and uncles, or aunts, to clean up and tidy up the kitchen, while the men retired back into the living room. Although times have changed significantly since then, this is a tradition that is largely carried on still to this day in my family, when you can safely assume that at any family gathering, the females, my mother, myself, my aunts and sisters, and even my daughters are in the kitchen preparing meals and enjoying each other's company, while the men are in the living room watching football, and my father is regaling us all of them in his high school football days. Most of the memories from my childhood associated with the traditions of my extended family are wonderful memories that I cherish to this day. However, as my discussion with my mother continued, we began to recall some of the ways that my paternal grandmother's collectivist views of family first, combined with her belief in the masculine-centered culture in which she was raised, led to some very hurtful experiences for me as a child. One such instance happened at Christmas dinner when I was about 10 years old. The children had been called into the kitchen to make their plates. I was one of the older girls of the group, so I was immediately asked to help my cousins and younger siblings to make their plates. Upon finishing this task, I went back to the kitchen to make my own plate. When my grandmother saw it, she immediately took the plate from my hand, put the turkey back on the platter, and told me to leave the food that she had cooked for her boys alone. At which point I burst from the room crying. I did not know at the time until talking with my mother about this paper that after that happened, my youngest uncle, who's only 8 years older than me, actually reprimanded his mother and told her how rude that was and how unnecessary it was, and that I should be treated like a loving grandchild. To the day she died, my youngest uncle was the only one who would correct her when her family first, my boys are the most important value system became overbearing for the rest of the family. As I previously stated, the two key theories that are most closely associated with our family traditions and belief system are those of the masculine culture and the collectivism culture. According to the text, masculine cultures focus on achievement, competitiveness, strength, and material success. that is characteristic stereotypically associated with a masculine people. The importance of money is a dominant trait in masculine-centered cultures also. However, the biggest trait of a masculine-centered culture is the division of labor based on gender. It is this trait of a masculine culture that is the basis for my belief that my family's traditions and belief systems are an example of a masculine-centered culture, as the traditions upheld in my family are based on the division of work based on gender. The traditions of my family are divided by gender, with female traditions being focused around stereotypical female roles of cooking, cleaning, and raising children, while the male traditions involve the stereotypical male roles of hunting, fishing, and working outside. The other key theory that is associated with the traditions and beliefs of my family is that of the collectivism, or the belief in the group before the individual. As described in our text, collectivism is the belief that the self is secondary to the group and its norms, values, and beliefs. Group orientation takes priority over self-orientation. Collectivistic cultures tend to value duty, tradition, and hierarchy. Families are particularly important to collectivistic cultures. Individuals of this culture have a high expectation of family loyalty. Although my family does not reside in a culture that usually is considered collectivist, my family traditions and beliefs are closely aligned with the beliefs of the collectivist culture. The examples of family traditions I have provided are a clear example of the way my grandmother both viewed the importance of family above all other things. Both my grandmothers viewed the importance of family above all other things, which is closely aligned with the traditional beliefs of a collectivist view. In the end, I believe that even though my family traditions are stereotypical of both the male-centered culture and the collectivistic culture, it is these beliefs and traditions learned from my grandmothers that have made my family the close-knit unit that we are today. Thank you.